is the only other guy to have that, and he was with Washington as well. But with regard to the Penguins, what is it about the TD Garden that is just the way Boston plays at home? Because they seem to get a little bit more physical with the Penguins.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. They generally have good goaltending, too. I think you saw evidence of their goaltending depth tonight with Yaroslav Halak. That's something to keep in mind, by the way, for everybody who wants to trade Matt Murray for a winger. Look at Boston. Tuukka Rask goes down. They put Halak in there, and he was very good tonight. He was better than the other goaltender. I know that in Jari, even though Jari made some really good saves again. I think that the size and the presence of Chara always seems to get the Penguins agitated. They seem to struggle with the defense of the Boston Bruins, too, in both ends of the ice when they see them. I thought the Bruins defensemen did some really good things tonight for Boston along the way. But I think it's interesting, Bob. Tristan Jarry has now given up 3 or more in 4 straight games?
I thought it was 3, but it could be 4.
Okay.
But that opens the door for Murray to play. I think Murray will play tomorrow. The question I have about tomorrow is how they will address that game. Human nature is to say it's Detroit. They stink. We got Boston again on Sunday. They may not play very well. But if Murray plays very well, I wonder what happens next. Because, Murray only needs a little opening. If he gets the opportunity, plays well. Let's say he throws a shutout at Detroit. Would you be surprised if he comes back on Sunday?
I know this. I know at the first opportunity in postseasons past, Mike Sullivan, even when Marc-Andre Fleury was playing great, they would have one loss. Matt Murray was right back in that net.
And he won't hesitate.
It takes more than one game. One game in the playoffs is 7 games in real life in the regular season. So it takes, I think, a lot more to make the change. It won't just be one game. It might be 2 or 3. But I've long maintained, I've long felt that the Penguins will open up with Matt Murray still as their starting goaltender in the playoffs.
You said that,
and I've not deviated for a second. And again, I underscore, look at the Bruins tonight. For people who want to use Matt Murray as a chip to get a winger in exchange, I would not do that, because who knows if Jari goes south, if he breaks down, if he gets hurt. I would feel much more comfortable going to Matt Murray than anybody else that they might pick up along
Quarterback
the way.
is the most important position in football. You saw how many quarterbacks the Steelers had to go through. Goaltending, I still believe, is the most important position in NHL playoffs. And back in 16, they had to go through 3 of them. So you're right. It needs depth. Jeremy Hillman on Twitter says, anyone think it's strange for the Penguins to have yet play Washington and Carolina this far into the season? That is kind of strange, but it means you're going to have some very meaningful games moving down the stretch.
Yeah, they're done going west, right?
Yeah.
They've gone west a bunch. I know that. So that has been the hiccup in the schedule. It has been a weird schedule this year. He's right about that. And boy, have they crammed a lot of games into January here, and they are definitely needing that 10-day break, I think, to kind of get reacclimated and I think do some self-evaluation as to who they want to trade and for whom.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting thing, because Jim Rutherford will make a trade. I don't think there's any doubt. Mike in Bethel Park joins us first up tonight here on the Sports Call. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Yeah, hey, guys, not to backtrack about the Astros, but regarding that stealing the pitches, 99-mile-an-hour fastball to a 90-mile-an-hour changeup slow slider is huge if they know the pitch is coming.
Sure.
And if that would have happened to the Pirates in the World Series, which it won't because they'll never be there again, do you think baseball should take the World Series off of Houston and give it to the Dodgers and set a precedent?
No, I think they should give it to the Pirates. It's a pity. Because like you said, they're never going to go against. They might as well get one.
No, I never believe that, Mike.
You can't just give it to somebody.
Because people know what happened. They've gone through it. I mean,
well, that's the Joey Porter argument.
Right.
Joey Porter says they should put 2 more rings on their fingers. Oh, you were definitely going to go and beat the Rams, the greatest show on turf?
That's right.
You were definitely going to beat the Eagles, or the Panthers that year? Come on, you can't make that assumption.
No, you can't. How about this from Google's Paciano? He says, does Don Kelly keep his job?
Yeah, I don't know.
And for those of you who don't know, Don Kelly was hired by the Pirates to be on this staff. Bench coach, correct? All right, is he bench coach?
He was the first base coach with the Astros, and I think he's the bench coach now.
Bench coach here, you're right. So that's a very important position in any coaching staff, but he was with the Astros during that time.
Think the first base coach might have something to do with it?
Top of my head, I would say yes. If they're going to do this with everyone who was in part of the administration, the management team, and he had to have known what was going on.
Well, that's what I was going to say. If he's the first base coach, maybe it had something to do with signaling the right-handed hitters, because he could see the catcher.
Bottom line is, if that's the case, then he does need to be removed. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, if everybody else is doing it. But again, like I keep going back to this point, I have a hard time with this bloodletting. If all of Major League Baseball had this hunch that something severe was going on, this whole everybody's head has to roll. Well, do they? If everybody was working so hard
That's
to
why
keep
I
it
asked you
quiet?
about Beltran.
I mean, it's not like they kept the entire 2017 Astros together through 2019. There's ex-Astros elsewhere.
But here's the difference. You know, it's funny how leagues operate. The NFL, when they had the Bounty Gate down in New Orleans, what did they do? They suspended Peyton and Williams for 1 year. That was it. They both came back. The Saints management was behind them, regardless of what they had done. In this case, it seems like they're just going right after everyone associated, wanting to wash their hands of it.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that's maybe because the NFL tried to do it the other way and people still hold them accountable for it?
I think the NFL still has, you know, they realize there's cheating going on. I think there's cheating in all sports, to be honest. I think if you don't try hard enough, maybe you're not cheating enough, you know? Be real about it. Look at some of the stuff that's gone on in sports. You're going to tell me people aren't trying to gain an edge? And some of that has to be concealed if you know it. But now that this is exposed, but it's different in the NFL. They had a chance to get rid of Peyton and Williams, and they chose not to. Well, Williams they did.
Well, they had an opportunity to get rid of Bill Belichick, too, and they didn't.
Yeah, Belichick was even worse. He never lost. Was he suspended? No.
No.
$250,000 fine, which is nothing.
Because they thought then, if we do that, then it validates the complaint that the championship should be given to somebody
Okay, guess
else.
what's happened, though, Tim? They got a slap on the wrist, and they cheated again.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what happens when you slap them on the wrist. You cheat them again. Maybe baseball's saying, we've had enough of this, even though this is, right now, we warned you guys once.
So what are you arguing? Are you arguing
I'm
that
arguing
they need to
that
be more diligent or less diligent?
they're being more diligent,
Yeah.
and I'm surprised by that.
I'm not, because I think they want the optics to be that we are handling this better than the NFL did with the Patriots.
Okay, that's what I'm saying about the NFL. The NFL should have done more.
The NFL should have done more.
Yes.
I think at the time there was less of a precedent, and they thought they could sweep it under the rug. And the more validation you give via punishment, then the more you get, well, if you're going to punish these guys so bad, like that last caller, just give the Super Bowl to the Steelers or give it to the Rams.
But in the NFL's case, by doing it that way, it encouraged them to continue. It did not stop it.
Yeah,
it did.
Okay.
I mean, that's what it did. So, I don't know. It's just a
Okay, but if what happened,
baseball and NFL,
if what happened, if the Astros were the genesis for the rule change in 2018, and the stuff with the wires that we're learning today happened in 2019, obviously they weren't spooked off of it either.
No, but they finally came down hard. And again, in the second time around with New England, they haven't done anything, have they? Have we heard one thing about this video?
No, this is bad for the Patriots. I think this is setting a bad. This is bad news for the Patriots.
Well, we'll see. It's interesting how it works. And here we are talking about, we haven't even gotten to Odell Beckham Jr. and Antonio Brown, which we will when we come back.
Should I pat you on the butt as we go to break here?
Did you see?
I'd be one lucky man if I did that.
Oh, man. We got to be back. Right after this, we'll be back.